Hi, it's Rafaela from Migraine Australia. Now, we've been chatting for quite some time about how we want a parliamentary inquiry, and there's been a bit of confusion about what exactly that involves. So Chris Bowen has fabulously made his time available to explain what a parliamentary committee is and what they do. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Oh, pleasure, RK. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. Lots of exciting things going on at the moment. There was, of course, the announcement earlier this week that the Standing Committee on Health will be doing an inquiry into how new drugs get on the PBS. So a lot of our members are very excited about that. But what exactly is a parliamentary committee? Can you help us out?
Yeah, sure. And it's good news, as you said, about that inquiry, but we'll talk a bit more about that. But look, Parliament is really not just what you see on the TV in the House of Reps and the Senate chamber. There's a whole bunch of work that goes on behind the scenes with parliamentary committees, and there's all sorts of parliamentary committees. But fundamentally, they look at issues and investigate options and report to Parliament, but give recommendations to government. And so across the board, there's standing committees. There's one on health, there's one on economics, which gets a bit of prominence. There's one on foreign affairs and trade. And there's all sorts of them. And members from both sides, or all sides, I should say, get elected to those committees in proportion, rough proportion to numbers in the Parliament. They tend to work, once the committee work has started, they tend to work on a non-partisan basis. There's some exceptions to that, but generally people tend to work together on a committee and try and get to the bottom of an issue and make sensible recommendations. And once that work is done and there's hearings and there's submissions, it's quite a thorough process. Once that work is done, the committee members get together and decide, well, can we agree on this? Can there be just one report from this committee, or will the government and the opposition have majority and minority reports? And both things can happen. And you can have like where they agree on 80% of it, and that's a joint report, and then the opposition can bring down a dissenting report and say, but we disagree about this 20%. So all sorts of options, but it's a very good process, Marge, to get issues higher on the political agenda and get some policy options promoted.
And this is the normal work of the Parliament. It goes on all of the time.
Yeah. All the time.
So it's not like a royal commission, something big and special and set up and really expensive or anything like that. This is what Parliament does.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no extra cost because the Parliament's already budgeted for all this. I mean, there's going to be inquiries into something, right? So it's determining what the inquiry is into. It's already budgeted for. The committee members tend to be backbenchers, not frontbenchers, because we just tend not to serve on committees because we've got frontbench jobs. But that's good because it means that you get sort of a fresh set of eyes to issues, and really a pretty big part of a backbencher's job is not just representing their community, but is being part of these committees in more normal times, going around the country, taking evidence, holding hearings. Now it's being done on virtually. The committee work is proceeding, and it's just happening more virtually. And yeah, they're happening all the time on a whole range of issues. The Economics Committee will be looking at something. The Health Committee of the House of Reps, as you said, has just announced that they're going to do an inquiry on how to get medicines listed more quickly. That's of particular relevance for the migraine community at the moment, but it's a broader inquiry looking at the broader issue of medicines. But they did one not long ago on anaphylaxis and severe allergies. They've done one on rare diseases. So there's all sorts of things that they look at from time to time.
And it's that Standing Committee on Health that we want to do an inquiry on migraine.
That's been our first option, that's right. That's chaired by Trent Zimmerman, the Liberal member for North Sydney. The deputy chair is Dr. Mike Freelander, the Labor member for Macarthur.
Who has migraine himself, he revealed.
Yeah, and he's also a very eminent paediatrician. So, he's perfect for that committee. And again, they work together to see if they can agree on what to look at. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And then once the committee has agreed on a program, on an inquiry, then they try and work together on joint recommendations. Sometimes that's doable in health. Often it's doable, and sometimes it's not.
Yeah. So what's the option for us if we can't get that particular committee? And obviously they're doing a fairly substantial inquiry now on something that's really important to us. So is there another committee process that we can go to get into migraine?
Oh, look, there's always options, RK. There's always options. So I wrote to the chair of the House of Reps Health Committee to look at it. If for whatever reason they don't look at it, other options are Senate committees. which tend to be dominated by non-government members. That has something going for it. And a committee can either be, what are the types of committees? Just very quickly, without trying to bore all our viewers to tears. There's House of Reps committees, there's Senate committees, there's joint committees where both sides are, or both chambers are represented, and then there's select committees. So a select committee is different to a standing committee. The standing committee is there because it's always standing. It exists. It just changes what it looks at. Whereas a select committee is formed for the particular purpose of looking at a particular thing. So a select committee will be sort of set up and will do a job and then might not move on to another inquiry. So, or it might, just be reconstituted and different members come on, etc. So really, I mean, there's all sorts of options. They all have similar powers. They all have similar roles. They don't have the power of a royal commission to sort of subpoena people and force them to give evidence. But you are giving evidence to a parliamentary committee is a serious thing. You are giving evidence to the parliament. You are obliged to tell the truth. There are legal ramifications. There's parliamentary privilege. So it's a serious undertaking, but it's not a royal commission.
And the important thing that, we wanted to achieve by asking for a parliamentary inquiry is getting stuff on the record, because everything's recorded. Absolutely.
And it's a remarkable opportunity to tell the story. I mean, just say we had a committee looking at migraine. Well, the committee would meet, it would set out a work program. It would, as I said, under normal circumstances, travel around the country, and they'd say, well, let's have a hearing in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane. Let's have one in a regional centre. Maybe we go to, Townsville or Geraldton or something. We'll have one in a regional centre. We'll send out a message that we're hearing. So, you could go to the hearing in your relevant place of, where you live and watch. You could also give evidence if the committee agreed to hear it. The committee would call for submissions. So I dare say you'd put in a submission, okay. You wouldn't have to be
Migraine
asked
Australia, definitely. It would probably be fairly meaty, but anybody can, right? So
anybody can.
Our members can make their own.
Yep. And obviously the submissions from peak groups like Migraine Australia are taken very seriously, but also individual stories can be very powerful. And as I said, there'll be a hearing. And so it's not a sort of, intimidating setting, but, the MPs sit behind the table and, people are invited, say, for example, RK, you might be invited to give evidence. And you tell not only Migraine Australia's position, but maybe your personal story and what migraine has meant for you and how it's impacted on your life. And these, particularly in the health space, these can be very powerful opportunities to tell the story, to get the attention of MPs who are all busy people. If you've got, 6 or 7 MPs sitting in a room hearing the story of migraine day after day in a committee process, which will go for a few months, you're going to cut through and you're going to get their attention. Even if the government doesn't accept the recommendations of that committee, you've got a bunch of MPs then who'll be in Parliament, usually for many years afterwards, who'll be on the job saying, well, okay, the government didn't accept that migraine or all those migraine committee recommendations, but I still think it's important, and that, they might be future ministers themselves. So it's very much worth doing. All
right. Well, we'll keep trying. We'll keep asking. Thank you for your time and thank you for your ongoing support. It's been great.
It's been great, RK. I'm so pleased to be playing a very small role in getting migraine up the political agenda and trying to get pressure on to get those 2 drugs listed on the PBS. That's our first priority. And also to get this committee going as well.
Great. Thank you so much.
Good on you. Cheers.